Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pageant Sit Down. My name is Regina Lena, and I am so excited for all of you to be here with me today. I'm also so excited because I have an amazing guest who's actually been on this show, but on the other end many times. I'm really excited to have her here. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Janice MacGregor, your Miss Regal World 2020-21. Hi, Janice.
Hi, Regine. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for watching the show from week to week. I'm really excited to have you here. So for those who don't know who you are, Janice, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
For sure. But first of all, I want to thank you for having me here. It's kind of surreal to be on a show that you're actually a fan of, and I've been watching since episode 1. So it's unbelievable to be here.
Well, I'm so grateful that, you've spent your weeks with me. But yeah, there are quite a few people here who are watching for you. So if you don't mind introducing yourself.
For sure. Okay, so my name is Janice MacGregor, and I am your current Miss Regal World. I represented the country of Guyana in Miss Regal World, and when I won that pageant, it was the first time that Guyana won an international pageant. So that was quite exciting for me and for my family, and I hope for everyone in Guyana. So I have my crown behind me. I don't know if you can see it or not. So I was born in Edmonton, and I remain a die-hard Oilers fan. And I currently live in a small town of 600 people in Saskatchewan. And actually that leads me into something. So it's actually Green Day today. I don't have a green shirt. I don't have anything green in my wardrobe. So I am wearing this green brooch. And this is in memory of a Humboldt Broncos hockey player who yesterday was the anniversary of the bus crash, and today is the anniversary of the day that he passed away due to his injuries. What he did, though, was he donated his organs and he saved 6 lives. So we wear green in memory of him and his donation, and also to encourage people to donate organs.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for bringing that to our show. And I should have worn green today. I have so much green in my closet, but I thought I'd go red lips to go with your crown and sash. And so I thought I'd go that route.
I don't have a green shirt. So I'm wearing red to go with the crown. And yeah, I was frantically looking for anything green to wear, and I couldn't find anything.
No worries. Well, first off, congratulations on your title. I remember when we first spoke a year ago, it seems, you had just won your new crown. Congratulations on that. How has your reign been during this pandemic?
Oh, it's well, to be completely honest with you, when I won in August, I really believed that by December there would be a vaccine.
Oh, it looks like she cut out, but that's okay. We'll get her back in shortly. So for those who are watching, if you have any questions for Janice when she comes back, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. I see that there are a bunch of you all here. Elizabeth, Burr, and Angels of Epilepsy. Welcome to the show. Well, let's see if we can get her back on here. I have so many questions for her. Oh, there she is. Are you back?
Did we cut off there?
We did. I was like...
I'm not sure what happened there.
It's okay. You're back, and that's all that matters.
Okay.
Yep. So the last thing we heard... Yeah, so the last thing we heard was he talking about December?
Okay, yeah. So when I won, I honestly thought that by December there would be a vaccine and that we would all be vaccinated and I would have a normal reign. I had no idea that it would be April, and I'm still waiting, anxiously waiting to get my vaccine. I don't know when that's going to be though, but hopefully soon. My platforms have been epilepsy awareness and acceptance, as well as civil rights. So I've been able to do a lot of that from home. And I mean, like, I was even able to get in contact with the consulate in Toronto.
Wow.
And they're hooking me up with some NGOs in Guyana, so I can work with some epilepsy groups over there.
That's amazing. Well, you mentioned epilepsy. I guess you brought Angels of Epilepsy here to the chat today. They're here saying hello. So they're here watching.
Thank you so much for joining.
So can you tell us a little bit about Angels of Epilepsy?
Yes, so I'm an ambassador for Angels of Epilepsy. They're based in Atlanta. The CEO is a lovely lady named Natalie, and she has been groundbreaking in terms of what she's doing in the US with legalizing cannabis or CBD for medicinal use. And Angels of Epilepsy works to help connect people with support as well as their medication. And one of the really helpful tools that they offer is an epilepsy diary, where you can keep track of how frequent your seizures are and what kind of seizures you have. So it's a group that I'm very happy to be associated with. And I became affiliated with them after. I actually wouldn't have met them if I was not Miss Regal World. This title has opened so many doors for helping other people with epilepsy around the world.
That's amazing.
So many different countries.
That's true. There's so many people with epilepsy, and you don't even realize it. So if you don't mind me asking, how did you find your way in adding epilepsy awareness to your platform?
I actually have epilepsy, and that's exactly it. Because people often say to me, "Oh, but you look so normal," and it's like, well, yeah, that's because people with epilepsy are normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I look normal because I am normal. Or they'll say it must be a mild case because you look healthy. And it's like, well, yeah, I take care of myself. I am healthy. It's a neurological condition. It doesn't show visible signs. So I was diagnosed in my first year of university. There was no doubt that I had a seizure. I mean, there were some instances when I was younger where there weren't any witnesses, so we don't know if I fainted or if I had a seizure. But in university, my first year, it was in the cafeteria. So there were plenty of witnesses. So yeah, I did all the tests after that. And I have epilepsy. It's been confirmed. And so that's why I want to work with epilepsy awareness as well as others to combat the stigma, because there is a stigma around this. And I want to help fight the stigma. I want to help other people with epilepsy reach for their goals as well. There are some high-profile cases of people with epilepsy, one of them being Cameron Boyce, may he rest in peace. While he was alive, he didn't tell anyone that he had epilepsy, and that may have been because in terms of casting, because of the stigma, they might hold it against him without seeing how fully capable and talented he really was. Mm-hmm. So it's my hope that I can get other people with epilepsy to be seen as normal people, to be given the chance to show that we are fully capable people, and to help them stand up when they're being discriminated against.
Mm-hmm. 100%. You know, I also know another beauty queen with epilepsy, and you can't even tell that she has it or gets seizures. But I'm grateful that, you know, you're able to use your voice and use your platform, and now even this platform, to share your story. And I think it's great. Angels of Epilepsy also say, thanks for mentioning our organization, Janice. We love you dearly. So looks like you have some fans here today, and they're right. What you're doing is amazing. So Janice, you know, you competed in a virtual pageant. How was that?
Well, considering how not tech savvy I am, I mean, you saw the difficulties I had connecting to this call. It was an experience. It was a lot of fun, and it was really helpful with getting through the lockdown, because I entered in April of last year, so about a year ago. And in our private group, we all connected, like all these girls from different corners of the world, we all connected, and we're still friends. And it was great because it was an international pageant, so we got to meet people from different cultures, religions, backgrounds, and it was educational in that sense. I know that I learned a lot from my fellow delegates, and it was groundbreaking in the sense that I think it was one of the first international pageants that was fully virtual.
I think you're right. I think it was.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Janice, have you competed before doing Miss Regal World?
Yes. So, so I go back to 2007.
Wow.
Yeah. So I competed in Miss Canada International, and then in 2008 I competed in Miss World Canada. And then 2018 was International Miss. That was my first international pageant. And then Miss Regal World. So in my first international pageant, I placed in the top 10. Prior to that, when I was doing Canadian pageants, I didn't make the top 20 or top 10 or whatever it was. I went through like a large personal transformation, personal evolution. And I mean, if anyone wants to hear about that, just mention it in the comments, but I won't bore you all to death with my evolution. It, as the word implies, it's a slow, gradual process. But through that, I was able to go from not placing in national pageants to placing in the top 10 at my very first international pageant.
Mm-hmm. So what is it about pageants that keeps you coming back? So you started in 2007. What keeps bringing you back all of these years later?
Is it possible that they're contagious or something?
The pageant bug?
Okay, so I've accomplished what I wanted to. I'm ready to retire. And then I never do. And when I won Miss Regal World, I was like, okay, so now I have my platform, and for the rest of my life, I can promote myself as being the very first Miss Regal World. And I can use that for the rest of my life to support civil rights and epilepsy awareness. But I'm not going to lie to you. I have the info package for Galaxy downloaded on my phone.
Amazing.
And I keep looking in on International Miss because I mean, I competed in 2018, and I want to go back. So I'm not ready to retire from competing.
That's amazing.
But I can't tell you why. There's just something about it, like the friendships, I think, and you get to meet these remarkable women from across the world, and we're all unique in different ways. And even with national level pageants, you get to meet people from different cultures, because you'll have girls from different ethnic backgrounds, different religions, and even for people from the same ethnic, cultural, and religious backgrounds, but from different provinces, they're completely different cultures. Vancouver versus the Maritimes, for example, we're completely, and I mean, me being in Saskatchewan, we're different cultures. So learning about our country through experience and interactions with people from across the country, as well as learning about the world through interacting with women from different countries. That's it's an interesting and unique hands-on way of learning.
100%. That's the way that you described it. It's true. I never thought about it that way, but it's very true. You meet women from all over the country, from all over the world, and you learn different bits and pieces of their culture. And I didn't even think about that, but you're right. You mentioned that you have the Galaxy information package with you and International Miss. If you could, like, what would you say is your dream pageant to compete in?
Okay. I would definitely like to go back to International Miss. Mm-hmm. I would also love Galaxy so much. And International Miss, I would be allowed to represent Guyana again. Like, don't get me wrong. I was born and raised in Canada. I love this country. It's my home, my native land. This is the only country I would actually literally die for. But I'm also in love with my heritage, and I'm so proud of my ancestors, most of whom I've never met. And I'm so proud of my cultural heritage. So I would love to represent Guyana again. I'm not sure if that's possible with Galaxy or not, but I would also just love to represent Canada in Galaxy.
Well, actually, for Galaxy Internationals, if you wanted to do an appointed title, you can actually go straight to Internationals and represent Guyana if that's something you really wanted.
So I was born and raised in Canada, and Canada's the only country that I have citizenship in. So, like, I'm not a resident or a citizen in Guyana. So
I don't know the logistics behind that, but I do know that they also have appointed titles for different countries. So if that's something you're interested in looking into, or like you said, representing Canada as well. Canada is such a diverse country that, you know, I'm Filipino, but I'm able to represent Canada as diverse as it is and as I am. So the sky's the limit.
Beautiful. Like the pageantry allows us to represent our countries as well as our heritage, because we're not forced to say, I'm Canadian. You're allowed to say, I'm Filipino Canadian. I'm allowed to say, I'm Guyanese Canadian. And I love that. And that's something that pageantry has allowed me that I didn't have for a large part of my life, because I grew up hearing that I don't look Canadian, or I don't look like a real Canadian. I don't know what that means, because what does a real Canadian look like?
Exactly.
Indigenous people, like, not other than Indigenous people, none of us are real Canadians. So yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead. You know, this is the world that we live in. We're doing this virtually. It's bound to happen. Feel free to cut me off whenever.
So, I mean, just being able to represent my country while being proud to be Guyanese Canadian is something that actually means something. And when I talk about this in pageant interviews, I always end up teary. But can you imagine if I got to represent Canada at Galaxy, and the national costume that I would wear as a Guyanese Canadian? Like, that costume would be so elaborate because, yes, I would tie in traditional Canadian ideas, and I would try to find a way to respectfully tie in our First Nations people without appropriating their culture, but I would definitely tie in my Guyanese heritage. So that Guyanese Canadian national costume would be would be something extravagant.
100%. I can only imagine what that would look like. Although Galaxy doesn't have a national costume competition, I think any pageant, though, that you do that has a national costume competition, that would actually be really stunning.
Yeah, International Miss doesn't, or when I competed, International Miss did not have a national costume.
We'll find you one so that we can make this happen because now I really want to see what this would look like.
Or whatever it's called now.
Whenever it opens up again. So Janice, I actually wanted to ask you, so you sent me some information about you and you mentioned something called Teachers in Tanzania. What is that, and can you tell us a little bit about it?
Oh, sure. So I'm a volunteer teacher in Tanzania. Obviously, not with what's going on in the world right now, but I teach English there. And what I did was, the first few years I taught English in the classroom from a textbook. Let's conjugate verbs, stuff like that. But then I was like, but conversational English is also important. So I developed a club, which evolved into drama and music. And what happens is the students write their own plays and they write their own songs in English, and then they get to perform it. And these kids love performing. So I teach English in the classroom, and then for people who are interested in drama, I have a drama club, music club. I'm not very musically inclined, so I usually have a student take charge of that part of the club.
That's amazing. So have you been to is this all in person in Tanzania or virtual?
No, it's all in person. I've been to Tanzania at least 9 times that I can think of. So yeah, usually it's for a 2 to 3 stay over the summer, our summer, their winter.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so what we're also doing is we're building a girls' school, and that's really exciting because it'll be a fully self-sufficient school. So they'll have farmland, so they'll be able to grow their own food and feed the students that way. And I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about education for girls, especially in developing nations, because when my students are on their break, there's about a 3-week break during that time that I'm there. I go to the girls' school and I help with the physical construction of the school. I'm not the best. It might take me a little bit longer than everyone else to make a brick, but I mean, I try to do my part, and I try to do my part in fundraising from Canada.
That's amazing. What do you not do? I mean, you have all of these different things going on. I think it's amazing what you do. And I love hearing stories about what you're doing in Tanzania, what you're doing with epilepsy, what you're doing with civil rights. That's amazing. We're actually at the halfway point, which flew by really quickly.
Yeah.
It did. So, Janice, as you know, as you've watched the show before, I do have a segment which is 5 tips from a beauty queen. And I, of course, would like to know, what are your 5 tips?
Okay, so I know you do this with every episode, and I love listening to the other girls' answers. But since you asked me to be on the show and then we were working out a date, I've been making a conscious effort of not thinking of my answers ahead of time, because I don't want to give some kind of rehearsed, pre-thought out answer, because I wanted this to be completely raw and authentic. So, okay, this is not a tip, but please note that it is do what I just said, where you pause, take a breath, and collect your thoughts. But that's not my tip. Just something that maybe you can notice and practice during pageantry. Okay, so I truly believe that pageantry is a microcosm of the world at large. So let's look at the ways that we can practice in pageantry as well as in the outside world. Okay, so let's look at this in terms of phases of pageants. Okay, so you start off with finding your pageant. So do your research. So what I do is, when I'm Googling a pageant to see if they're legitimate or not, I'll type in the pageant name as well as the word scam, or the pageant name and then the word scandal. And yes, you will get some hits from pageant parents or pageant delegates who think that it was rigged. So just take those with a grain of salt. But if you see a lot of complaints, or if there's a complaint with Better Business Bureau, definitely you might want to avoid that pageant. Also, if they have a lot of former queens, but those not involved with the pageant anymore, you have to wonder why. And how that ties in the real world is, okay, modeling, be involved in both of those. Even when you get in contact with someone through a reputable site like IMDb, you do have to look them up, and there are some things out there that are a little bit too good to be true. So that was the selecting a pageant portion. Preparing for a pageant. Tip number 2, okay. Know yourself. Definitely know yourself. Know what your hardcore boundaries are, what your beliefs are, what things you are not flexible on, but also be willing to learn, because in preparation for a pageant, you're mentally and physically becoming the best version of yourself. So read different newspapers, read different books, read things that are from different perspectives than your own. I know that, I won't say names, but I read some extremist newspapers that are on the polar opposite of the continuum than I am. And that's because I want to, even though I don't believe or agree, I want to be able to understand them and where those people get their ideas from. Also, in preparing for a pageant, focus on the relationships with other delegates, because in Miss Regal World, there were 56 girls in my division. And just know that when at the end of the pageant, only one person walks away with the crown, but everyone can walk away with lifelong friendships. So, okay, I guess that's 3. So that's research, know yourself, focus on the friendships. Okay, interview. I know I get asked about interview nerves and how to deal with interview anxiety. To be honest, I've never actually been anxious about an interview, because I guess my view of pageantry is rather unromantic, in that I see it as a job interview, which it is, because we're applying to represent a pageant organization, a pageant director. So going into the interview, just know that they're not judging you. I mean, we call them pageant judges, but they're not really judging you. They're just there to see whether or not you're the most suitable candidate. So know yourself and be able to present all aspects of yourself in the interview. So when I go into an interview, I'm my most strong and my most confident. But like I mentioned, I always end up crying when I talk about my pride and my heritage and how I get to be Guyanese Canadian. So be comfortable with showing your vulnerable side as well as your strong side, your confident side, your intelligent side. And there's nothing weak or unempowering about being vulnerable. Okay, so what is that? Is that 4 tips that I'm at right now? Research, know yourself, focus on the friendships, interview. Okay, so that's 4. Okay, the 5th. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, only one person walks away with the crown. So my 5th tip would be have a plan for after the pageant. 2 plans, actually, because everyone there is working hard to get that title, but only one person gets it. So have a plan. Plan A, if you win, how you will take your platform to the next level. So if you're competing in a local pageant or a provincial or a state level pageant or a national pageant, know how you'll take it to the next level. And if you win the ultimate international title, then know how you will carry out your platform during your reign. And plan B is how can you promote your platform even if you do not win? So to be completely honest with you, I was focusing on plan B for Miss Regal World because when the finalists were announced, I mean, my first runner-up is an NHS nurse in England. Like, I mean, there were such strong delegates, and I'm so honored that to even be amongst the top 8, let alone to win. But I definitely had a plan of how I could use my status as being a top 8 finalist in the very first Miss Regal World pageant to promote civil rights and epilepsy awareness, as well as continuing my work with education for girls. So those are my 5. Can I add a 6th one?
Yeah, do your thing.
If you win, just realize that you don't have, this is something that I learned the hard way because I did not practice this, but I wish I knew this when I won. You don't need to get back to everyone's DMs right away. Like, yes, they're happy for you. They're excited for you. They want to congratulate you. And I'm so grateful for that. Just be supportive and be grateful for their support. But just know that you don't have to get back to them right away. Just take that day or 2 days to just let it sink in, enjoy the feeling, and then you can start getting back to your friends. And yeah, that's something that I wish I had known going into this. Oh, also, for when the world gets back to in-person pageants, so if you win, great, go to that after party and enjoy it. But just try to keep in mind that there are 50 to 80, sometimes over 100 other girls there who, for some of them, they've been working for this their entire lives since they were little girls. So just keep their feelings in mind when you're celebrating. And if you did not win, go there and celebrate your heart out for the winner, because she's the one who's the most qualified for the job. You not winning doesn't mean that you're a loser. It's not an issue of having a pageant winner. and then a bunch of pageant losers. It's an issue of having the pageant winner and then the girls who did not win. That doesn't mean that you're a loser. It just means that this isn't your time to be in that job position. Just like I can walk into NASA tomorrow and be like, I'm here to be an astronaut. And they'll say, no, thank you. And I'll be like, okay, understood. Because I understand I am not in a place in my life where I can be an astronaut. You know, it's just not my calling right now. That doesn't mean that I'm dumb or that I can't be an astronaut. It just means that right now I'm not what NASA is looking for.
Exactly. Well, those are amazing tips, so thank you for that. And Janice, if people wanted to know a little bit more about you, follow you on social media, where can they find you?
Sure. So on Instagram, I'm ms.janice_MacGregor. I believe. It's just, I never log out, so I never have to type in I believe that's my handle. So that's ms.janice_MacGregor. It's funny because all three of those can cause confusion because it's Ms. MS, not MISS. And then there's both ways of spelling Janice, and then there's two ways of spelling MacGregor. But yes, it's ms.janice_MacGregor. My website is janicemacgregor.com, and my Facebook page is, well, if you just do a search for Janice MacGregor and then go under, like, search under pages, then you'll find me there.
Amazing. So I actually have the links down below to both your Instagram and your website. So at the end of the show, I'll go on and put your Facebook page there if you like. So Janice, thank you so much for your tips and for sharing your story with us. You know, you are such an inspiring woman, and I know you talk about how you enjoy this show and the platform that it gives to people, and I'm really grateful that, you know, you were able to come on here and talk a little bit about who you are and what you do. I do want to get into something that I found really interesting about you in the little fun fact sheet that you sent me. You mentioned two things. One, you really love Elvis. And two, you are meant to be married to one of the Backstreet Boys. They just don't know it yet. I'm really interested. First off, Elvis, tell me about this love that you have for him.
Oh my gosh, and I can feel my cheeks.
I could see it.
Oh my gosh. So, oh yeah, where do I start talking about that, man?
You put it on the fun fact sheet. This is what happens.
So yeah, I love Elvis. I love what he stood for. I mean, yes, I understand he did not write any of his songs. I understand that. No one needs to drop that in the live chat. I know he didn't write any of his songs, but actually one of my favorite songs from him, If I Can Dream, he did not write it, but he was a part of the conversation from which that song sprung. He was having a conversation with the man who wrote the song, and afterwards, Elvis went to sleep, and the man sat down and wrote the song. And I apologize, I do not know the songwriter's name. And if you look at the lyrics for If I Can Dream, they very closely parallel Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. So that's one of those songs where I sing along to it every time I hear it, and every time I hear it. So I love Elvis. I do believe if Elvis was alive today, and if Elvis was a girl, I do believe he would be a pageant girl. Because Look at his wardrobe. Look at his jewelry. He has more bling than any of us. Like, yes, king of rock and roll, but like king of the stage outfits. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he was rocking the cape before that became a trend in the pageant world. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I actually visited Graceland back in 2007. And oh my gosh, just, I can feel myself blushing just talking about it. So, yes, I visited Graceland back in 2007, and I did the ultimate VIP tour. So I got to go inside the mansion, and fun fact, I never, ever, ever drink from water fountains, but with the water fountain in his home, I did drink from that because he once drank from it. I got to see where he was buried along with his family, and in the museum we got to see some of his outfits that he wore on stage, as well as outfits that other performers used that were inspired by him. So there were outfits that Kiss had donated, The Rock, Carrie Underwood, like all of these people who were inspired by Elvis in some way, and they donated their show clothes, their performance wardrobe, to the museum. I also got to visit both of his planes, the Hound Dog and the Lisa Marie. And yeah, like, I'm not a selfie person, but I definitely took some mirror selfies in the same, because it was the same mirror that Elvis had used. Mm-hmm. So I did take quite a few mirror selfies. And yeah, I actually got to hold one of his belts. It was a belt that he wore on stage, and I got to touch one of his rings. And I mean, I had to wear gloves. Yeah. And I visited Sun Studio, and I usually don't touch things that the public has touched. Like, I mean, I've always been a little bit of a germaphobe, but I did touch the microphone that he actually recorded on. And I mean, I was going through this mental back and forth about, you know, should I lick it? Because I mean, when I know, like, I'm a germaphobe, but this is what that man does to me. Like, I thought about licking something just because he had touched it, and I did not lick it. But
okay, good.
I mean, wow, what an influence if he can turn a germaphobe like me into a, first of all, touching like the mic stand, and then mm-hmm. thinking of like licking the mic, even though he recorded on it back in the 60s. And how many people have touched it since then?
I was going to say, how many people do you think have also licked that thing? So it's probably good that you did it.
And also what was really cool is in the same studio, Sun Studio, was Larry Mullen Jr. from U2, his drum set. So got some pictures because I love U2 as well. Mm-hmm. So I got some pictures with Larry Mullen Jr.'s drum kit as well. And as for the Backstreet Boys, I've been a fan. Oh, wow. Okay.
Forever.
And since the 90s. So when you think about it, the 90s, the early 2000s, the teens, and now the 2020s, that's
a long time.
But yeah, I was so certain at one point in my life that I was supposed to marry Nick. All of the Backstreet Boys are married now, so it's not going to happen. But I mean, if any of them were single, I would probably be a Kevin girl right now.
Oh. Did you watch Dancing with the Stars?
No, I didn't, but I got, like, I'm on their text hotline. So like I think it's Wednesdays. Every Wednesday there would be a text going out. Don't forget to vote for AJ.
Oh my God, I
Wait, was it a
watched
hit
it.
show?
It was.
Yeah. Okay,
I
don't
watched it
don't
because of him.
Jay. I'm like, how could he not have won though? Like that must have been rigged. If a Backstreet Boy did not win that, then that must have been rigged.
Well, I mean, there were really good dancers on the show. I'm not gonna lie, I was very impressed with the outcome of the show. But the Backstreet Boys did make a virtual appearance. I don't know if you saw that too.
If it was on their Instagram, I would have seen it. But I didn't watch the show. But now I'm gonna have to look that up on YouTube.
You need to. Okay, so for all of those who are watching, who was your Backstreet? Were you Backstreet Boys or an NSYNC fan? Let us know in the comments down below. I was like you, Janice. I was all over Nick. I was like, yes, Nick Carter. Sorry, NSYNC. I was all about Nick Carter, and so I feel you on that one.
Okay, I thought you were asking me if I was a Backstreet or NSYNC fan, and I'm like, do you really have to ask?
Okay, so here's a question for you. Just
Okay.
hypothetically, if Elvis was still alive, oh my gosh, people are actually writing. If Elvis was still alive and say Nick Carter was single, who would you go for?
Elvis.
Oh.
If Elvis is still alive and Kevin was single, then that would be
Changes the game for you, I guess.
But yeah, between Nick and Elvis, definitely Elvis. Between Kevin and Elvis, too bad polygamy is not legal, eh?
I mean, some states don't like sister wives is a thing, so why can't you have king husbands? I don't know.
Yeah. So, okay, who would that be? Brother husbands?
I don't know.
Yeah. 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 And then bring Leonardo DiCaprio into that too then.
Well, there you go. She's got it all figured out. I love that. I love how we brought you here to talk about pageantry, and here we are talking about Elvis and the Backstreet Boys, and now Leonardo DiCaprio. Welcome to the Pageant Sit Down, ladies and gentlemen, where we talk everything pageants and boys, apparently.
Well, okay, I promised myself that I would be completely raw and authentic. And I mean, this is what happens when I start talking. Who knows where it's going to go?
No, and that's amazing. Elizabeth Marnock says, I'm too young when we're talking about NSYNC versus Backstreet Boys. She's born in 2001. Okay, fine. One Direction,
okay,
or what is it?
Keep in mind that one of these groups is still around.
Mm-hmm.
The other group, we know where one of their singers is, but where are the other four? Okay, now that I know is going to get some angry comments.
Well, there we go. Elizabeth Marnock says, brother husbands, ha ha ha. And Angels of Epilepsy says, Elvis is your soulmate, Janice.
Yes. Natalie, if that's you commenting from Angels of Epilepsy, you know me too well, girl.
Oh my goodness, I love this. Well, we have a few minutes left here on the show. This hour is flying by so fast, and there's a lot of questions from Instagram and a few that I want to get through to you. We answered some of them already, but the one question that struck my attention was, how do you want to tackle the misconceptions and stereotypes behind pageantry?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It's a whole other twist of what we were just talking about.
Okay, so in terms of it being sexist or misogynistic or it objectifying women, whoever's making those comments needs to take a step back and say, why is it objectifying women? Well, it's objectifying women because you are choosing to objectify women. It's not us. Mm-hmm. It's the people who are objectifying us that are making us those objects. So that's on them to change. I mean, that's like the whole mini skirt thing. Oh, well, she was asking for it because she was wearing a mini skirt. No. The onus is on the person who is treating women that way to change. As for the idea that we're all stupid, or, you know, uneducated or whatever. I graduated and I mean, there are beauty queens who are doctors, dentists, lawyers, but that's just the hard sciences. There are women who are involved in the arts and humanities and the soft sciences who are making strides in those fields. But I mean, I was on the dean's list. I graduated with high honors. So tell me that I'm stupid. Tell me that I can't think. Like, I can prove you wrong. Mm-hmm. The idea that we're all about looks, and that's, you know, it's all beautiful girls and all of that. People who get by based on looks. Okay. Something that I think was actually my very first blog post on my website. I talk about my nose and how it's not like the Western ideal of beauty. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, I have a bump in my nose. My nose starts off narrow, then gets wider. I have darker skin than is seen as the ideal. But the way that I see it is, my ancestors, I didn't get to meet all of them, but they are living on through my DNA, and that's why I'm proud of the way that I look. I might not be a 5'10" supermodel. I might be just 5'5", which is above the global average. But you know, we're not just based on looks. And as for the idea that we're all like, I mean, there's the stereotype that we're all these girls that go to these glamorous parties and all of that. Like I said, I'm from a town of 600 people. You can't see this, but I'm wearing my Levi jeans right now. Like, whether you want to call me a country girl or the saying that I invented is rural girl, like, you know, you can't really just lump us into one group, because I mean, I live in a small town. There's farmland all around me, and there's a potash mine that way, over that way somewhere. I mean, I always get questions. Like, I remember once I was on a flight home, and, well, the nearest airport is in Saskatoon. I was on a flight to Saskatoon on my way home, and I remember the flight attendants, there were 3 of them, and they were asking me, like, oh, so do you live in Saskatoon, or are you just visiting? And I said that I live in a small town about an hour away from Saskatoon. And they were like, how does a girl like you win Miss Canada?
Whoa.
Why would a girl like me not win? Just because I'm from the country? Yeah, like, just because I'm from a small town, or just because I'm country, doesn't make me less capable of representing my country. Doesn't make me any less than anyone else.
I can't believe she said that.
Yeah, it was actually 3, 2 females and 1 male flight attendant. So, like, I mean...
But my question is to you, or to them, is what makes a Miss Canada? What makes a perfect Miss Canada? I mean, you live in the rules of Canada. You live in Saskatchewan.
We are the ones who put food on Canada's table.
Exactly. You are diverse. You are... I don't understand what else they need from a Miss Canada representative. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that brings up a really good conversation that we can have, because, you know, I want you to use this platform and share your story. There's been a lot going on in the world with racism right now. There's a lot going on with Asian hate crimes. You're from a small town and you're Guyanese. How has that been for you?
Okay, so racism is something that is not new to me. I mean, I faced it when I was living in Edmonton. I faced it when I was living in Saskatoon. But the first time that I was called the N-word to my face was in a small town. And what really shocked me is that people heard, but no one said anything. No one said anything. And that's why when I see racism against Indigenous people, which is very rampant in Saskatchewan, and I know that Asian hate has always been there, but it's especially amplified now. And when I see like the racism against Canadians or African Americans, and racism against my people of my own background, like I've also been called the slur for Pakistani. It's not just something that I let pass. I think that staying silent is not an option. And also, if someone does say something, I do ask them to explain, like kindly explain that to me. So the guy that called me the N-word, the next day, because I was in shock when I heard that, and I was after the shock, there was that hurt that so many people heard, but no one said anything. It was the next day that I talked to him about it. So I was like, hey, can I speak to you in private? And I offered to like pour him a cup of coffee. And because like I know that he's a coffee addict. And like I used all of the right body language and tone of voice to make sure that he knew that I wasn't coming at him out of anger. You know, I wasn't being the, I guess, with his mentality, if you're not white, you're black. I made sure that I wasn't coming at him as the angry black woman. I made sure that I was coming across in a gentle way. And I told him, you know, what you said yesterday was quite hurtful. And he tried to justify it by saying, well, I know I'm not supposed to use that word. That's why I rarely use it. And I pointed out that rarely is still too many times. Once is one too many times.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that you're able to stand up for yourself and educate him, because just like the stereotypes and the stereotypes that go with pageant girls, you know, using your voice, using your platform to stand up for yourself and educate people and say, no, this is not okay. And I think of what you're doing on social media, and I saw the messages and the comments that you sent me as well with what I've been posting online. I think what you're doing is amazing, and I applaud you for standing up for yourself and for those who can't stand up for themselves. So thank you for doing that and for making sure that people are put in their place, because it's not okay. And I'm sorry that you've gone through that too.
It's what we're supposed to do. It's, I mean, standing up for someone shouldn't be a remarkable thing. It should be the standard. And I mean, the way that I look at it is my ancestors were like on my dad's side. So my dad actually passed away in 2010. But on my dad's side, through oral history, I know he's part Indian, and oral history from what I've heard, he was part black. So that his ancestors in Guyana would have been there as slaves. They didn't come there voluntarily. And I know for a fact, he's part Indian. And my mom's side is Indian. So they were all brought over as indentured laborers. So when I look at what colonialism did to my ancestors, I can't remain silent. Like I have a voice that my ancestors, of whatever backgrounds they might be, they didn't have that voice. They were silenced. They faced discrimination. They were seen as less than human, but they overcame. And now I have all of these opportunities and privilege that I will take advantage of, because I am living my ancestors' wildest dreams. Like, they never dreamt that, you know, a woman would go to university or be representing Canada, or they never even voting. Voting is something that they weren't allowed to do. So when I vote, I always wear something, whether it's, excuse me.
Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's okay. I always wear something, whether it's a shirt or bangles, accessories of some kind, that represent my ancestors, because I'm voting. So I'm expressing my beliefs through the democratic process. But I also want to pay tribute to my ancestors who never got that right. It's not a privilege, it's a right.
No, 100%. Angels of Epilepsy actually said, thank you for talking about this topic and showing others that you can stand up for yourself. So just like them, thank you for sharing your story and for always being the person that you are and believing in yourself and showing who you are to everyone. I'm sure your ancestors and Elvis are proud of you for everything that you do.
I really have one grandparent who's still alive, and I had one grandparent who I never met. So I hope that all of them and the generations before them are proud. And I hope to continue to make them proud.
And I'm sure that you do, because, you know, you're using your platform. You're the first Guyanese representative to win an international title. I think that's amazing. You're doing a lot with Angels of Epilepsy, civil rights, teacher in Tanzania. There's so much about you that people don't realize. And I think that what you're doing with your platform and beyond is amazing. So we are at the end of our show, Janice, but I do again want to thank you for being so vulnerable and opening up and sharing your story with all of us here. That's why I do what I do, and you know that because you watch it every week, is to just use this platform to share stories and to educate. Like you said, there's all these stereotypes around what a beauty queen is, and the purpose of this show is to educate people and show them that we're more than just a pretty face. We are smart. We are more than what you see on TV. So Janice, thank you so much for being here today. And if there's any last words that you have for our viewers, feel free to say them.
Okay, well, actually, first I want to start with you, Regine. Thank you for having me. I've been watching since episode 1. So when you asked me to be a guest, I was like, does she really have to ask? I mean, the answer is obviously yes. And thank you. It's unbelievable to be on a podcast that I'm actually a fan of. And to the people who are watching, Angels of Epilepsy, I want to thank all of you for your time, because I know that, like, I invited several people, and for anyone who, whether I invited you or you're just a regular viewer or whether you just tapped in to the video, like, thank you for your time, because I know that time is one of those things that you use once and you can never get back. So I want to thank you very much for giving me your time. It's quite an honor and a privilege to have had that opportunity to spend some time with you.
Well, thank you for sharing your time with us, Janice. And like she said to everyone who tuned in, thank you for joining us this evening. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you give it a thumbs up. I do go live every Monday and Wednesday for the Pageant Sit Down and have amazing guests from all over Canada, like Janice, and all over the world. So make sure you continue to tune in and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Hit the bell button if you want to be notified on when we go live. Next week, I actually have international women joining me all the way from Portugal and the US. So make sure that you tune in. Again, Janice, thank you so much for joining me. And to everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully those in Ontario will get out of lockdown soon. Bye.